It is time for my March 2026 wrap up. So we are going to dive right into it. Yet again, a weird month of reading. I realized at the end of the month that I'd read about 40 books and only 4 of them have been fantasy this year, for about a rate of 10% of my reading being fantasy, which is way down. I think I had a peak in 2021 of like 50%, and on average about 35% every year other than that. Let's just dive into the diverse list of things I read with a little bit of fantasy. I started the month off by finishing one of those books I had mentioned in a previous video, and that's Wine of the Dreamers by John D. MacDonald. This book starts out very slow. It's his first science fiction novel. It's from like 1950 or 51, and it's all right early on, and then it picks up about a third of the way through, and I really enjoyed the book, and I think it had a very disturbing ending for some of the characters that are in the story. So overall I think it's good, but not like John D. MacDonald good. And the premise of it is there's 2 different groups of people. There's one that's on Earth, and then there's one that they're on this alien planet, and they're the dreamers. Once they come of age, because they all live in this giant building and none of them go outside, none of them even know there is an outside, what they can do is connect themselves to a machine and they can dream. And the dreaming is them putting their consciousness into another person on another planet. But they don't know it's another planet. They just think of it as like a playground that's created by the machine, and that none of the people are real. So they go in and do these horrific things by controlling these people and think, oh yeah, that was fun. We'll do it again tomorrow. But they're causing serious damage to actual people. And then on the Earth side, it's like very atomic era science fiction, and there's a secret group in the US government, and they're trying to create faster than light travel, but something keeps happening. It starts with an engineer randomly just deciding to sabotage the entire faster than light system they were developing, and he doesn't know why he did it. He just did. And light spoilers, it's one of the dreamers. Like, it's alluded to very early that it's one of the dreamers, because one of the rules of the dreamers, which counters everything that the people in power of the dreamers say, is if you're in your dream, which is really fake, it's very, very fake, but if you're in your dream and one of the people you're controlling starts discussing getting off of their planet and discovering other planets, you have to sabotage it in any way that you can. Even though it's fake, but you still have to do it. Really bizarre. But the story is not bad. There's just better early 1950s science fiction to read. So really only read that if you're like a John D. MacDonald completionist like me. I read the last few Travis McGee novels in March, like finishing my reread, and one of them was Free Falling Crimson. The book is crazy. It has one of the worst bad guys in the series. I think he's a little over the top in ways, and also he doesn't show up until the last 30% of the book. I still really love Free Falling Crimson. It's such a strange book, but I'm not gonna go on about it. I've already talked about it before. You know, the Travis McGee series is incredible. Go read it. Don't know how many times I have to reread it before other people will read it. After that, I wanted to get into another book on writing. And so I read Writing the Novel from Plot to Print to Pixel by Lawrence Block. It is an updated version of his book on writing that he had published through Writer's Digest. He indie published this one and revised it. There's an audio book. It's great. Reading about how Lawrence Block writes is just so motivating. He does such a good job of telling you, you know, nobody writes the same way as another writer, but these are the ways that have worked for me and some of the writers I know. He's really good at giving examples of ways to refine your craft, or just ignore the examples. He says it in the book that no one's writing the same way as anyone else, so who really cares? Just write. I think that's the one thing that all good writers that have a lot of things published have in common, is they write a lot. So the writing once a week doesn't work. The writing once a month doesn't work. He said you need to sit down and write every day. Every author says that. I look at his book as a really good primer for crime fiction. Not just writing crime fiction, but finding other good crime fiction. He talks about it a lot in there, and he talked about his books as well. And some of them, when he was talking about them, I thought, I really want to read that, and we'll get to that in a little while. Writing the Novel from Plot to Print to Pixel, it's very good. Read it over the one I talk about later. And then I read My Name is Legion by Roger Zelazny. I'm still chipping away at all of Zelazny's novels. This is like a novel-ish. It's a fix-up of some short stories. It's okay. It is about a guy. He was part of a group of like programmers and engineers that created the world database for people. So everyone is now in the database and they're being tracked. It's very ahead of its time when it comes to like social credits and stuff. This was from the 1970s. Well, the main character is someone that removed themselves from the system before it was completed. So he creates fake identities through a back door that he can only access from a remote island, and he gets there on his houseboat and it is very Travis McGee because he is a fixer. I know that the character is obviously inspired by John D. MacDonald because Zelazny has talked about John D. MacDonald. He makes like little nods to John D. MacDonald in the Amber series and a few other places, so it's kind of obvious where the influence came from, but that's a good thing. I liked that aspect of the character. The guy is given jobs where he goes in to just do random things. Sometimes it's steal a piece of technology. Sometimes it's prevent a technology from being sabotaged. One of the stories involves him trying to solve the mystery of a murder that was committed by a dolphin, which is just ridiculous. The way to sum it up is a man who doesn't exist is hired to solve the case of a murderous dolphin. Of course, Zelazny would write something that bizarre. And then the final story in it is about a robot that is killing its creators, and it was originally sent out for exploring the universe, but it's come home and people are ending up dead anywhere it goes, and this guy's trying to figure out what's happening and stop it. It sounds really interesting, and that story is interesting, but man, they drag, and the ending to that one kind of redeems the drag of a story up until that point. But there's a lot of Zelazny I would recommend above this. So My Name is Legion, not very good, but let's move on. The next two books I read were Cinnamon Skin and The Lonely Silver Rain, the final two books in the Travis McGee series. Cinnamon Skin is good. I think that the villain is like a mix of a couple of villains that predate him, and it's all right. I still think it's a 5-star read though, because there's a lot of development between McGee and Meyer that I really enjoy, and of course we get to go back to Mexico, and some of the best McGee stories take place in Mexico. And the last one, The Lonely Silver Rain, is incredible. Top 3 in the series. I love it. It feels so different than the early McGee novels, which makes sense because McGee is in his 50s at this point. And so the adventures are just different. And there's a lot of weight to this story because the years are dragging McGee down. He's losing friends. He's losing his place in the world. And one of the best things about this book is he finds a new place in the world and a new purpose in a way that I guess should have been expected, but also not. And I just really enjoy it. It's the coziest of the McGee books, which is crazy to say because there's some really messed up stuff that happens in it, but I really like it. I think that I could reread it more than all the other books in the series. It's just so good. It sucks that it was the last one, but it ends in such a way that it makes sense that it was the last one. So good. I just love The Lonely Silver Rain so much, but how much more can I talk about this series? So let's move on. For a change of pace, I read 2 Dungeons & Dragons graphic novels. I read Fells 5, and it is D&D 4th edition, which is one of the reasons I read it. You get some lore about the Nintir Vale, which was the default setting for D&D 4th edition-ish. They really didn't want a default setting, but they created this Points of Light setting, and Points of Light is a concept where if you're looking at a map, the land is enshrouded in darkness, and these little points of light are civilization that are kind of trying to hold their own against the encroaching darkness, and that's where the heroes come from. And one of the goals is to keep the lights bright and maybe even add more points of light to the map. So when you leave these points of light, you're in the woods that are controlled by the Fae, or you're in the mountains where some bad monsters want to get you, or cities that have been destroyed by some supernatural thing in the past, and going in there, you're probably going to interact with them and it's not going to be fun. So Fells 5 is really good. It has almost too quick of a pace, and I wish there was more time to develop the characters, but it's still a good graphic novel. It's a really good D&D graphic novel. It is about 5 heroes who Adric Fell is the leader. He is a sword and board fighter with a cavalry sword. It's funny because even in the graphic novel, people are like, dude, why are you fighting with a shield and a cavalry sword? You don't even like riding horses. And the crew is great. There's the halfling rogue, there's the elf ranger, the dwarf paladin, just very basic stuff, which makes sense. It's kind of showing off how D&D 4th edition works, like with a party, because a party in D&D 4th edition is supposed to be 5 characters. The system was built around that, which is a tall order considering it's hard to even get 4, which is what like 5e and like Pathfinder 1st and 2nd edition are based on. So 5 is a tall order. The graphic novel's good. I suggest reading it digitally because hard copies are very expensive. It's just a collection of all the comics bound up into one. And after that, I read Dungeons & Dragons, Abraxas Wrynn of Eberron, and this is a bind up of a bunch of different stories. It's like most of it is about Abraxas Wren and his dwarf companion. It's Holmes and Watson, but in Eberron, with an interesting spin because Abraxas Wren is like a jerk a lot of the time, but also a really interesting character. And where Fells 5 lacks some like depth in character development, you really feel like these characters have been around for a while and you see these glimpses of their background, and it's really good. And then there's just at the end a completely different story about another character in Eberron, and it's good. Like they're very good. They're not crazy good, but I really enjoyed them. I mean, it's D&D crime fiction in graphic novel form. So if that sounds interesting to you, you will have a good time with Abraxas Wren of Eberron. And I just wanted to explore Eberron because it's one of my favorite D&D campaign settings. And so seeing all this wonderful art of this world that I adore was just great. After that, you're probably going to sense a pattern. I wanted to read another piece of media that involved D&D 4th edition, or the Points of Light setting. And so I read The Temple of the Yellow Skulls. I DNF'd the book before that, which is called like Mark of Narath. It was not good at all. I couldn't get into it. But The Temple of the Yellow Skulls is all right. I mean, it's good for a D&D tie-in novel. It goes hard in the tropes. There are some stylistic choices in the way it is written that drove me insane. If I didn't know any better, I would think that the author was paid per present participle used in the writing everywhere in a way that is distracting as you read the book. If you don't mind the egregiously heavy use of like present participles and over-explaining how a character should feel at the time, then you'll be fine with this book. But I don't get why it was the way it was. The story's not bad, but I just wish that the text was cleaned up in a more efficient way. I know that sounds like nitpicky and I don't know, snobbish of me, but I don't mind writing that is unconventional, not super clean. I really like clean writing, but if you are telling a good enough story, I don't care if it's not written the best, but if you're telling a very generic D&D tie-in story, then you got to have some really clean, efficient writing to not make it a distraction. After that, I read one of the novels that Lawrence Block recommended in his book on writing. It was his Burglars Can't Be Choosers. He explained the premise and how he came up with the idea, and I thought that is so cool. Burglars Can't Be Choosers is about Bernie Rodenbar. He is a burglar in New York City in the late 1970s. What he does is he usually cases a place and then, robs them. And he does it like 4 or 5 times a year, makes just enough to kind of enjoy his lifestyle, doesn't work any more than he has to. Well, the story starts with him on a job that was given to him, not one that he found himself. And the deal was steal this little blue box from this place and you'll get $5,000. And that's enough to last quite a long time, more than his regular haul when he's stealing. So he thought, let's do it. And he breaks into this place. He's searching for the blue box. The cops barge in and he's like, whoa. And he's smart. He's done this before. He's got some bribe money ready for the cops. And the cops are like, all right, we're going to leave first, say we didn't see anything, and then you got to sneak out. And then something happens and a body is discovered in the bedroom of the apartment he's in. And so Bernie runs away because the cops are now like, bro, you murdered someone, and he is on the run. And the story is about him using his burglary skills to prove that he is innocent. He has to find the killer so that he doesn't go to jail for a crime he didn't commit. Going to jail for burglary? Yeah, it would suck, but he's willing to do time for something he has done. He's not going away for life or getting put in the electric chair over a murder he didn't do. He doesn't hurt people. Like, one of the cool things about this book is it's a crime novel that's super compelling and there's no violence in it. There's a single scene when Bernie tries to get away where he shoves a cop to the ground, an older cop, got a big old pot belly and stuff. It's easy to wrangle that dude. He knocks him down and he runs away. That's it. I think that's the only violence in the entire book, and the book is so compelling, and the pacing is just so good that you would think there were a lot of action scenes, but there are not. So I think the book works really well. I want to read every book in the series. Same with his Matt Scudder series. I read Sins of the Fathers last month, so I'm all in on Lawrence Block. I really like his writing. It's very clean. He's very good with dialogue. I love the pacing of his novels, which leads me to Telling Lies for Fun and Profit by Lawrence Block. It's another book of his on writing. It came out around the same. It is based on his articles that he wrote for Writer's Digest, and a lot of that is also in his other book on writing. So really just pick one or the other and you'll get the same information. There's like a little bit of difference between the two, so if you're a weirdo like me, then it's worth it to read both, but for most people, you just pick one or the other. They're both very good. So I realized that I was not reading fantasy this year and I needed to rectify that. And so my last 2 books of the month were fantasy. I read Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I've wanted to read it for a while. I showed off a signed copy I picked up not too long ago and said I wanted to get to the book. Well, I did. I really enjoyed it. boy, does it remind me of Brotherhood of the Wolf, the French martial arts movie that involves like late 1700s France, people fighting werewolves, lots of cool action. This is a lot like that, except vampires. I really liked it. I think that there were just little things that just didn't quite work for me. And I know some people are like, there are people that don't vibe with Christoph's humor like that. There are people like, he was writing this for a specific audience, and I am that audience. And still, there's just little things. I really liked it. I think that he relies too heavily on the unreliable narrator structure of the story, and it's jarring at times because the present part of the story is written in third person, and then you jump back in time and it is the main character retelling his story to someone else that's in the present, which is when it's third person. So you have third person in the present, first person in the past. I don't care about that. It doesn't bother me. I know some people hate when the narration style jumps around like that. It doesn't bother me. It does bother me when people jump around in time a lot, and this does that a lot, but I don't even count that against it because it's done well. Like I've said before, good execution supersedes any problems I have with stylistic choices. So the story's good. It's so close to being like an absolute banger. I really liked it. I love the main character's relationship with the people around him. It's telegraphed really early, like some of the tragic things that happen, so they didn't hit as hard as they could have. But then other stuff, these little subtle moments where he's with his brothers, not blood brothers, but brothers who have been forged in the same fires as him. His bond with them and his interactions with them hit harder than the stuff that's supposed to hit really hard, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. And I forgot to explain what this is. I mean, a lot of people already know, but Empire of the Vampire is a post-apocalyptic vampire story. This is about the vampires winning the war against the humans. So vampires exist. It's very 1700s France, and something happened, and now the world is in eternal night. The daytime is very gloomy, not much grows anymore, but potatoes and mushrooms. So vampires are slowly conquering the world, which brings me to the points of light from D&D 4th edition. This is a lot like that. There are these little beacons of light in this land enshrouded in darkness, and these people are fighting against the light going away, and there's these last bastions of humanity trying to keep things together, and some of those people are corrupt and some of those people have given up, but there are people that are still trying to keep the fires alive, and it's very cool. The world building is excellent. I really enjoy the world building. There is some stuff in here that is absolutely terrifying, and it has to do with how the world has changed now that we are living in eternal darkness. So don't let my nitpicking get in the way of you picking up this book. It's very good, and it has illustrations in the book that are wonderful. I love when fantasy books have a lot of illustrations, and it has a lot of illustration. Now this last one, this is my book of the month. For now, I'm pretty sure this is my book of the year. I don't know why it took me so long to read this. I'm glad I finally got to it. Don't know why people didn't tell me to read it earlier. That's all on you. I read Legend by David Gemmell. It is now one of my favorite fantasy novels of all time. I cannot get over how good it is. The story is about Druss, the Legend, and Regnak, also known as Reg. Those are the two main POV characters. Druss is 60 years old and is aware of the fact that if he goes to battle again, he will die. Death has told him as much, and he does it anyways for a few reasons. One, he doesn't want to die old and senile. And two, he knows that the cause is worth fighting for. And then we have Reg, who was a soldier, but ran away from that. And now he is on his way somewhere. He thought he was going to do his own thing, but things have changed, and he too is going to the last stand of the Draenei people. So this entire book has a really interesting background to it. David Gemmell thought he had cancer, and so he started writing the story because he realized he had always wanted to write a book, and now that he thought he was dying, he should probably do it. And he started a story about a last stand of a people in this fortress that has never been taken by another civilization, and there are these heroes, and one of his big inspirations was Louis L'Amour westerns, which you can feel when you're reading it. And at the time that he wrote it, the manuscript, he said it wasn't very good, but he soon found out that he didn't have cancer. It was like a misdiagnosis thing, so he shelved it, and a few years later a friend read it and was like, dude, you need to finish this, make this a novel. And so this was his debut novel, which is wild to think about. It is so well written. I cannot believe that this is a debut novel. It's about a last stand. It is about people stepping up and becoming the heroes that are needed, and it's so good. It reminds me of the memes where like dudes will see this picture and just say hell yeah. Dudes will read this book and just say hell yeah, or anyone will read this book and just say hell yeah. It's so cool. Action scenes are great. The characters are great. The dialogue is great. These little moments between the battles are wonderful. It reminds me a lot of The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. This has to have been an inspiration for it. This is probably the greatest war fantasy novel ever written. I love it so much. I cannot get over how good it is. It's the kind of book I would like to do a deep dive on, because right now I'm just rambling like an idiot. There's so many little things throughout the book that you can latch onto and just think about as you're going through it when it comes to the way these characters are and why they do the things they do. It's just so fun. I love when there is that level of nuance in what on the surface level looks like Old Man Conan fights till he dies, which is what one of the inspirations was Gimel said that Druss originally was pretty much just old Conan, which in this he is too-ish, but there's a lot more nuance to it. He has his own story, and I love it so much. I don't think that I will read any of the prequels that involve Druss, because I love the way his story is told in this book. It's a lot like Lonesome Dove. I'm not reading the prequels to Lonesome Dove. I like the crew in Lonesome Dove just the way they are. I like the hints of backstory I get that I can fill in the rest with my own ideas. I don't want it spelled out for me. Same thing goes for this, but I did find out that the second Draenei book takes place like 100 years after this one, and it's a completely new cast and way different, and wow, do I want to read it now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I'm just a David Gemmell fan for life now. I will read his Troy series because I've been told it's great, but the next thing I'm going to do is Draenei Book 2. It's just so good. I cannot get over how good it is. It's so refreshing because I liked Empire of the Vampire, and it's not fair to compare Legend to Empire of the Vampire. Legend was capturing lightning in a bottle, and Empire of the Vampire is a book from a very good fantasy author who had really nailed down the craft before writing it. So I don't know. It doesn't seem right to do that, but I was doing it the whole time and kind of felt bad because I liked Empire of the Vampire, and then Legend absolutely blew me away. It's like the story was written for me, which is a thing I've been struggling with. Like, that's all I read this month, and not a lot of fantasy this year, and a total of 5 fantasy novels now, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm just not in the mood for it, but a lot of fantasy just is not doing it for me. I've been DNFing stuff. I've been trying to read newer fantasy, and most of it is just bland. I mean, it's like French fries without salt. Like, yeah, it's French fries. It's fried potatoes. It's good, but it ain't got the flavor that I'm looking for. So maybe that's just a me thing, or maybe I'm just reading the wrong stuff. And since it's newer stuff, I don't want to name and shame that I just thought it was boring, and so I quit reading it. But yeah, that was my March. And for April, I am starting off with a book recommended to me by Steve Donahue. He did a great video about books he recommends about the Lone Star State, so of course I had to check it out. I'm almost done with A Strong West Wind by Gail Caldwell. It is her memoir about her time growing up in Texas. I really like it. I'll give a complete review in about a month when I do another wrap up, and I've got a couple of other Texas things I'll probably read. Thanks to Steve. I'll put a link to that video in the description. And other than that, I'm going to try to read some Zelazny. I'm going to try to read some vintage science fiction. I found out about the International Fantasy Award, which was only given from like 1951 to 1957, but it's got some bangers on it that I've already read. And I thought, yeah, it's only 7 years, so maybe I'll just read the other books on there that I hadn't read because they seem really interesting. And then there's a John M. Ford book. It is a historical fantasy novel, like alternate history. I don't know why I can't remember what it's called. This is me looking down at my phone trying to remember. The Dragon Waiting, A Mask of History by John M. Ford. I think I'm going to give that a try. I've heard it's real dense though, so we'll see if I can get into it. It does seem interesting. It is about the Byzantine Empire never falling, and there's magic, and it reminds me of a crew kind of like The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, but about trying to put someone on the throne in an interesting way, and there's just a lot to it that my ignorant self cannot explain well, so maybe I'll be a little better at explaining it after I've read it, if I read it. And beyond that, I don't know. Does April have a theme? Because like June on the Range is coming up, and I'm going to be doing a book haul soon. Yes, I have too many books again, and I picked up some Westerns, some really cool ones. But does April have a theme? Let me know in the comments, and I'll try to do something in the BookTube theme of the month. I'm still reading short fiction. I actually got on like a side trek. I was reading a very, very long thread about tabletop RPG design in this like very niche section of a very niche hobby. It's all right. When it comes to videos, I keep trying to write scripts for certain videos and telling you I'm about to just give up and ramble in front of the camera on the topic. I have a book over here that I think is one of the most important science fiction books that anyone can own. It is a collection of 4 novels, and I think that it gives the reader a very good understanding of what science fiction looked like in the early 1960s. So I think I just need to sit down in front of the camera and yap until the video is done. Just brute force it through. Just bash my head against the camera and the microphone until something coherent comes out, because I really want the video to be out. I want to show off this book, but it's just, I don't know. I'm struggling. Same thing with the Zelazny video. I want to talk about his 5 favorite novels of his that he wrote and why I think those define who he was as a writer. Let me know if y'all want those videos. I will try to get them done, but I'm getting sick. I don't know if you can hear it. Like last night I went to bed sick and I woke up today very sick. I think that's it. That's all I got going for me. Let me know what you read in March. I love seeing the lists in the comments, and let me know if you've read any of the books that I read in March or plan on reading in April. That's it. Thanks for watching. And with that, I'll see you next time.